What's going on, everybody? This is NGS, back for another car vlog. Haven't done one of these in a very long time. If you're wondering what that noise is in the background, currently playing Persona 4 Dancing All Night. Yeah, it's a thing. But what started this video, what gave me the idea to do this video was a recent tweet that I put out on Twitter. For those of you guys who haven't followed me, my Twitter account is NeoGameSpark, at NeoGameSpark, twitter.com/NeoGameSpark. If you're interested in following me, that's my Twitter handle. And in the tweet that I sent, I was basically asking y'all what you thought about video game censorship. More specifically, censorship related to current Nintendo titles. Now, when you're talking about video game censorship, this topic is as old as video gaming. I mean, going back in the day to the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, there were definitely a lot of examples of video games that were censored. In some cases, there were games that were put out on store shelves that had to be recalled due to the sensitive subject matter. So censorship is no real stranger to gaming, movies, music, what have you. Censorship will always exist, and it's a really controversial topic because, like many things in the world, people seem to have a black or a white perspective on it. Either they're for it or against it. But what I've come to notice in the past couple of years is that a lot of these things aren't as black and white as we seem. A lot of them tend to fall into a gray category. So what is going on with this censorship with Nintendo games, right? More recently in the video game industry, there has been a lot of, I guess you can say, controversy surrounding ultra-violent video games. There's been legislation that has tried to be passed to ban these ultra-violent games, to make the consumers aware of its sensitive subject matter. And as, you know, civil-minded people who don't listen to brain-dead idiots like the media, we know that all this stuff is BS. It all comes down to the person, their mental psyche, and how they perceive games. Video games, movies, music, they don't cause violence. They are not the direct cause. Can they give people a little bit of an edge to tip them over? I mean, sure, but then again, that comes down to the person, the individual. If you are not in the right state of mind, you really shouldn't be listening to that, and you should realize that this stuff is not reality. It is just fiction. So take it as you will. But when it comes to the Nintendo titles, specifically Xenoblade Chronicle X on the Wii U and Fire Emblem Fates on the 3DS, they have gotten the Nintendo censorship treatment. Now, Nintendo, when they have brought over a lot of their games from Japan, they have ended up censoring them. One recent example, a game that I actually played extensively, was Fire Emblem Awakening for 3DS. There was a certain character in the game who is the best waifu in the entire game, known as Tharja, and there was a certain scene where she was basically stripped down to a bikini. And there was a really suggestive camera angle where you saw her rear end and her in a bikini. In the North American version, that scene was censored, and they had actually a weird cloth, like you know how they have those dressing room things? They basically put that over her to cover her rear end, because let's just say it was kind of, well, baby got curves, I'll say that. And that's why she is the best waifu. But yeah, that was a bit of censorship that people kind of got concerned about. But what happened with Xenoblade Chronicles X is what started people thinking about things, and with the recent announcement of Fire Emblem Fates excluding the petting simulator, it's kind of tipped people over the edge. So in Xenoblade Chronicles X, there was a scene with, well, not really a scene, but there was a certain character who is a 13-year-old girl who wore very suggestive clothing. It was pretty scantily clad. She was stripped down to a bikini, and you could actually see her cleavage. Now, considering this child is 13 years old, Nintendo of America did not want to take any opportunities to incite controversy, considering this is going to be a game that's going to be played on a TV, and what are the odds that a mother is going to walk in and see a 13-year-old girl stripped down to bikini? Wow, I totally wish I had not spent this $1,000 on this 65-inch TV so I can see that. That's what the parents are going to think. You know what I'm saying? And they also removed something that was really weird and struck me by surprise. They removed a breast slider. Basically, when you're designing your character, you have the option to modify certain features. You can make their muscles big, you can make them fat, you make them small, you can expand their nose to the size of Ego in Persona. And they removed one that affected the women's breasts, which made no sense whatsoever, considering it's a character creation feature. There are some women out there who have very small breasts, and there are some women who have very large breasts. So why are you taking away a feature like that? That's like saying you're going to remove like the size of someone's lips because black people have bigger lips than the average individual. You know what I'm saying? That makes no sense because you're trying to avoid blackface? Like, what? So that really wasn't a major deal because Xenoblade Chronicles X was still intact. The game was just fine. But with Fire Emblem Fates, on the other hand, they removed a couple of things related to some controversial features with a certain character who can enter, I think, into a homosexual relationship. And there was this weird thing going on. I don't know the full details about it, but that was the first strike for some people. And the second one was the removal of this petting simulator. Now, I say petting simulator because this is what it is, basically. Your character, whichever waifu you decide to have in the game, you have the option of taking the Nintendo 3DS stylus and literally petting their body. Now, it only goes down to, I believe, the neck, so you don't get into the really kinky areas. But yeah, when you pet the character on their head, they basically make really suggestive noises. Some stuff you would see in like a ecchi anime series. That feature was removed in the North American version. Now that you guys are caught up to speed 6 minutes into the video, what do I think about Nintendo doing this thing to their video games? Is it really a big deal? To be honest, like, y'all know my stance on censorship. I hate censorship. I do not see why we need to censor certain things. This is the artist's original vision. As crazy as and convoluted as it is to have a petting simulator in a game, this is what they want, and you should respect that. So long as it's not harming any individuals or spewing hate or anything like that, it's not a big deal. But what I've learned to notice, and something that I think I kind of got more insight on when I turned 15, 16 years old, was that censorship, in some cases, is not a bad thing. It pertains to certain genres, though, and certain outlets. Like, if you're looking at TV, you're looking at radio, stuff like that, you know there's going to be censorship of songs, of anime and stuff. It's going to be censored on TV. Why? Because this is broadcast to millions upon millions of people. The odds that a person is going to be flicking through the channels and see something like that, it's a higher than likely chance as opposed to a person who goes into a store and buys that particular video game and knows what they're getting out of it. And in the case of stuff like Naruto being censored on TV or Dragon Ball Z being censored on TV, we already have the opportunities to watch these shows uncut. We have DVD box sets, we have Blu-rays, we have streams on Crunchyroll, and knowing Funimation, they're probably going to find a way to make Dragon Ball Z 4K ready. I don't know why, but you know it's Funimation. They're going to do that. Ugh. So is it a big deal if censorship exists if we have access to the original product? Well, no, it's not a big deal. But when is censorship taken too far? In the case of video games, when you're bringing something like that over to the United States, this is the only opportunity that person has to play the game in a language that they're familiar with. With something like Dragon Ball Z, that stuff, yeah, you can see it on TV, but you also have the DVDs and you also have various ways of watching it. So in the case of Fire Emblem Fates, the only people who are going to be playing that game are Fire Emblem fans. So does it make a big deal to censor this really niche game that only a certain amount of people are going to play? Because let's be honest, games, like just Japanese RPGs in general, they're pretty niche when you think about it. The people who buy Call of Duty aren't going to be buying Final Fantasy. The people who are out there playing stuff like Gears of War, they're not going to be picking up something like Fire Emblem. They'll get wrecked in 2 seconds, you know, since they can't duck, cover, you know, do shit like that. So yeah, when it comes to that situation, is it a problem? Depending on the size of the game, the scope of the game. If it's something to the level of Call of Duty, would more censorship be necessary because they're going to a bigger audience? I definitely think there's more of a chance that the developer is going to do that. But if it's a smaller game where only a niche amount of people are buying it, the only people buying the game are the ones who are interested in the game and know about the game, should censorship really be applied? And here's where I've kind of gravitated my position towards in the past 8 years or so. Censorship and stuff for certain things like anime and stuff that ends up on TV is sometimes necessary. Why? Obviously, because it's on TV, you have to abide by the FCC. But in some cases, if you don't censor that product, it may never, ever, ever find a fan base. Guys, let's sit back and let's be real. With stuff like Dragon Ball Z, right? Dragon Ball Z would have never become the phenomenon that it was had it not been censored. Had it not ended up on TV, it would not still be raking in the dough for Funimation. We can get into arguments whether or not censorship was necessary, and some of the stuff they did in the really early days of Dragon Ball Z was stupid. They blew up the cargo robot! I can see their parachutes! But at the end of the day, if that stuff wasn't applied, we wouldn't have gotten Dragon Ball Z in the States. It wouldn't have opened the door for Naruto, for One Piece to get a proper dub, so many other things. So in that case, I'm fine with censorship if it means that we're gonna get the uncut versions. But with video games, I mean, I'm a bit more inclined to say no. However, being me, I like to play devil's advocate. I like to see all different sides of the equation. And in the case of Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates, the gameplay wasn't altered whatsoever. You can still play the majority of the game. It's not as if they took a major feature out of it. You're still getting the game, you're still getting everything about it. It's just these certain side things are removed. Same thing with Xenoblade Chronicles X. And same thing with so many games that come out. Something I think a lot of people don't understand when it comes to video game censorship is that it's not just the United States where this happens. This happens in other countries to an extension, I can't even speak today, I'm sorry, to a more extensive degree. Look at some of the games that come out in Europe that are censored, games that are outright banned in Australia. And look at what they do to games in Japan. Stuff like Last of Us being censored. So many games in Japan over here in the States getting censored because they have certain rules that they gotta abide by. If you're talking about censorship in the States compared to other countries, the United States is very lenient because we're rah, 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 freedom. We love our guns, we love our bacon, and we love our patriotism. And that's something I think a lot of people take for granted. Other countries, their censorship is just insane. While other countries have different degrees of what's acceptable. Stuff like what happened in Xenoblade Chronicles X is acceptable in Japan because Japan is different from the United States. Over here, we look at that stuff and we're thinking, oh, this is really cringe. But over there in Japan, it's just, hey, cool, whatever floats our boat. And to be honest, I don't think anybody is ever going to take Fire Emblem Fates, that petting simulator, and think, you know what, I'm going to apply this to my non-existent waifu. Oh wait, I can't because she's non-existent. I don't think people are playing Dream Drop Distance and looking at the Dream Eater mechanic where you can actually pet them and get points for it and thinking, man, this is pretty suggestive. I don't think this is right because I have a dog, and if I pet my dog, is he going to be making these weird noises? So the concept of video game censorship is very, very up in the air. You know, there's a lot of gray areas that I think a lot of people aren't noticing. In some cases, censorship is necessary if it means getting the product out here. And if that means we're going to get an uncut version down the road, like we do with anime, hey, all for it. But in cases like video games, it is definitely more subjective because of the fact that this is the only game you're going to get. And there's a really low chance that they're going to release a patch for you to unlock it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not for censorship. I'm for people doing what they want to do. But I think you really need to take it by a case-by-case basis and look at the market you're going to reach and look at what they're censoring. I understand that, you know, censoring as a whole can open the door to really bad things to happen. As history has shown us, that is the case. But I think we have to be a bit more selective on what we do. Anyway, what do you guys think about this? Let me know down below in the comments section. I'm NGS signing out, and like always, I will catch you guys later. Left-handed beer gun. Peace.